Hey, how's it going everybody? This is Craig Peters here from Soundiron, and on today's Soundiron session we're going to be writing a Christmas song. Now, we are doing a solstice songwriting contest for the best winter holiday song to win a free copy of Olympus Symphonic Choir. So there's still a few days to get in on that. If you watch this later on, you might miss it, but you know, in the event that you do, this will be a fun little, you know, compositional walkthrough anyway. I'm doing this in the style of like a full orchestral arrangement. Some of you guys on the YouTube channel poll that I ran, a lot of you guys wanted to see some more orchestral stuff, so I thought it'd be cool to do some orchestral meeting some Christmas music. So let's go ahead and jump into the composition that I wrote. I'm using a bunch of stuff on this one. It's a pretty dense arrangement. So we'll go listen to it and then break down how I did it. So let's check it out. All right, so that's the track. Doesn't it just make you want to sit around a, you know, fireplace with your family and eat cookies? I mean, who doesn't like eating cookies, right? So for any of you that happen to tune in on the Soundiron Forum Facebook group, I did a live stream sort of doing a little bit of live composing, and I started this track, and then at the end of the stream I was thinking, oh, you know, it might be cool to sort of try and really flesh out the ideas. Because it was really, you know, pretty simple, some strings, a little bit of Sleighbells and stuff. So this is basically the full arrangement of that. So for any of you guys who aren't in the Facebook group, you should definitely think about joining. You know, just hop in, say what's up, meet some fellow composers, try to learn some stuff from everybody, show your music. So as far as this composition goes, I'm using pretty much a bunch of stuff that's geared toward holiday sounds. So if you look up here, we got some Alto Glockenspiel, we got some Noah bells, Elysium harp, emotional piano, Sleighbells. You can't have a Christmas song without Sleighbells. I got some Hyperion strings micro. I also got a little bit of Symphony series brass and some Symphony series woodwinds. Then we have some ape elements, just pretty much nothing really fancy going on with the percussion, mainly just sort of accenting some downbeats, some cymbals, and, you know, a little bit of snare rolls here and there. Then we have our choir section. Now this is using Mercury elements, Mars and Venus. Mars and Venus are from the Olympus Symphonic Choir, the full version, or you can also get these individual. But if you decide you want both, you can get the Olympus Symphonic Choir, which is what we're giving away for the contest. So I guess as far as any composition, the only place to really start is, you know, where it all started. And for this, it is the piano track. Now, depending on how you work, everyone's different. Sometimes I might start with strings. Sometimes I might start with, you know, just some other different instrument, percussion. For this, being that it's sort of a winter holiday themed Christmas kind of song, I thought what better way to start than on piano. So I just loaded up emotional piano and just kind of, you know, just started playing with some melodies, just kind of. Just kind of playing around with some ideas and stuff. And then let's go ahead and listen to the piano by itself so you can hear just pretty much the heart of the piece, basically, and then everything else was just kind of orchestrated around it. So let's just go ahead and listen to just the piano. So that's pretty much the heart of the melody, and then everything else is just kind of based around it. A lot of it's just kind of based in like E major, A first inversion, and then it eventually goes to the root position A. And then B major, and then back to E. So really simple. The main thing about this, when you're trying to kind of make a melody that's hopefully somewhat memorable or catchy, something that sticks in your head, you definitely want to keep it simple as far as the melody goes, because depending on what you're doing, if you're going John Williams, go full on John Williams. But for this, being that it's sort of a very simple, kind of poppy version of a Christmas song, I wanted to keep it simple. So after this, I basically started adding in, you know, some sleigh bells, because like I said, when I think of Christmas, you think of sleigh bells. You know, Santa's flying over your house, you're gonna hear some sleigh bells. So let's go ahead now and just hear the piano and the sleigh bells together. So it's just kind of, you know, just creating a little simple kind of back and forth rhythm. And then from there, I basically just started working on some strings. So let's just go ahead now and we'll add in the string section and hear how this sounds. This is going to be using Hyperion Strings Micro. I'm using, these are all the strings that I ended up using. Pretty much some legatos, some sustains, some spiccatos, pizzicatos. Let's just listen to just the string section and what we listened to together. So you can hear with the violins, I'm sort of just basically using them as a way of playing the melody. And then I'm using also violins and viola spiccatos, as well as cellos and basses, just sort of pretty much just adding to the rhythm, really, you know, just a little percussives, you know, ostinatos and stuff. So let's go ahead and listen to just the spiccatos from the violins, violas, cellos, and basses. So with the violins and the violas, they're kind of doing some counter melody stuff, which is cool. Whenever I sort of start to think about doing ostinatos, I don't like to always have everyone doing the exact same thing. I at least either try to do somewhat of a harmony, maybe kind of like a harmony in thirds, but at the same time, having the melodies do something a little different. So this is what the violas, or the, I'm sorry, the violins are doing by themselves. And then when you add the violas doing sort of a counter melody, you can hear how so one's going dun 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 dun, and one's going dun 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 dun. So it's providing sort of this counter harmony rhythmic thing, which I think is cool. Because I don't always like I said, I don't always like having everything doing the same thing. Always trying to sort of provide some kind of rhythmic interest in some way or another. And especially when you're doing stuff with a lot of instruments, when it comes to harmony, you don't always want to have everything playing the same thing. So then after that, let's go ahead and add the cellos. And these are just sort of doing something really simple too. So you can see it's doing something totally different. Dun dun dun, dun dun dun, dun 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 dun. And then when you hear that together, so, you know, like I said, just when it comes to orchestration, I'm not a master at orchestration at all. I'm still just, you know, trying to get better at it, just like everyone else. But the way I always try to see things is each orchestral section has its own sort of space. So you have like bass, cello, violas, and violins. You know, everything sort of, if you're looking at it like a like a frequency spectrum, you have, you know, like your lows, low mids, you know, high mids, and then highs. So it's always about trying to find balance. So especially, you know, when it comes to brass, you got tubas, trombones, horns, and trumpets. When it comes to woodwinds, you got, like on this track, I got bassoons, oboes, clarinets, and flutes. So I was always trying to think, you know, kind of starting from the lower frequencies to the higher ones, and then arranging accordingly. And, you know, and depending on your song, you definitely want to think about, where's my low end instruments going to be? Where are my high instruments going to be? You know, trying to be able to hear everything, or, you know, or at least thinking about, if you're not hearing it, it's more of like a layering sort of thing. So, you know, so it's definitely a fighting game as far as trying to make everything sound audible, but at the same time musically interesting. So let's just go ahead now, and then I also have some pizzicatos in here too, because even though they're not necessarily super in the mix, I wanted them there just as kind of providing, you know, some other rhythmic sort of things going on musically that is more in the background, but it's there. And, you know, pizzicatos are always great for that that kind of Christmassy sort of sound, especially when you hear those kind of you know, that sort of stuff just sounds super Christmassy to me. Like when I hear, or when I think of Christmas, I always think of that kind of stuff. So I got some violin pits, I got some cello pits, and I got some basses. So let's just go ahead and listen to those. Let's just slowly kind of add everything in. So that's pretty much the strings. Is pretty much it for that. After that, then we got some brass. And like I said, I'm using the Symphony series brass. We did the Symphony series brass with native instruments. We are currently working on our Hyperion series for all these instruments, so don't worry, they will be here. We're working on them. And but for now, I thought, you know, this would be a cool thing to use, because you know, when you're going orchestra, you got to have brass. So let's just go ahead and listen to the brass by itself. This is just everything that's brass in the brass section. So starting off with the trumpets, I have if you can notice down here, I have some expression maps set up for this. Expression maps, I did a video showing how to set up expression maps in Cubase, which is, if you like going that route and you have Cubase, it's definitely worth checking out. If you're one of those guys that like to have every articulation laid out on its own track, that's totally cool too. This is just sort of a way for me to have one instance loaded up, and then I could just key switch down here. It's a lot easier. So the very first thing I have for the trumpets, it's just doing this sort of ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, little triple tongue thing. Actually, let me go ahead and solo this just by itself. So just doing some little triple tongue ba-da-dum bursts, and then eventually I key switch to sustain, which is up here. And then just kind of, you know, playing along with the melody. I think I did the horn line up an octave just to kind of support it a little bit. And then after that, you can't try to have anything without some French horns. So with the French horn section, I'm just pretty much kind of playing the melody that I'm pretty sure is what the strings are doing. Actually, now that I think about it, I think the horns might be doing something different than the strings. Let me see. Because I think I might have tried to do a little bit of a counter melody. Yeah, actually the strings and the brass are doing something different. I think because when I was working on this, I don't always like to just copy and paste a melody from one track to another, unless I know for sure I want to like double it. If let's say you got flutes and violins. So I mean, even then, you know, the flutes are doing something in the strings, and then if you add the horns, so it's sort of like these counter, not necessarily a counterpoint, but like kind of like these little counter melodies sort of playing within the same scale, starting on different notes, and then when you hear it together, it almost provides, you know, a harmony. And then pretty much with the rest of the with the brass instruments, I'm just sort of kind of laying out different parts of the brass sections to supply the you know, the harmonic structure of the chords. So here's the trombones and the horns. Just some small little swells. I like the sound of these trombones. They're very warm, and they sound good when you play them with chords. Sometimes when you're using certain patches, when you play chords, it ends up sounding like 36 different horn players or brass players or whatever. So with this, it actually sounds really nice when you're just kind of playing. You can, you know, play a simple 1-3-5 chord and it sounds good. And then after that, I just got some tubas, just kind of, I think I have them doing some short notes. Yeah, if you recognize this little melody, this was actually, I think it's the same thing that the double basses are doing, because I wanted to sort of have certain low instruments that aren't playing a lot to just maybe just be a little bit more rhythmic. So this is just kind of supplying that same sort of low-end staccato rhythm that the basses are doing. So let's just go now. Let's listen to the brass and the strings by themselves. So a lot of the chordal warmth is coming from the brass, and then a lot of the rhythmic and melody is coming from the strings. Now, after that, let's go ahead and go into the woodwinds. Now, woodwinds are fun. I like writing for woodwinds when I can. You know, when you're working on a lot of the more bigger, maybe denser, kind of big epic hybrid orchestral stuff, a lot of times people don't use woodwinds because they end up, you can't hear them. So in something like this, it's kind of fun to, you know, write for some woodwinds. So and I tried to make each section sort of its own thing. Like they're all playing together. You know, musically it works together, but they're all sort of doing their own thing. So let's listen to just the woodwinds by themselves. So very nice little woodwind melody. I just got some flutes. I got a legato and a staccato patch. I got a clarinet legato, oboe legato, and some bassoon staccatos. I always love the sound of bassoons when you just sort of, you know, just having them sort of playing those little popping notes. And then I got a little bit of a clarinet going on, as well as some oboe going on. And yeah, and just hearing them all together. So let's go ahead now and just listen to the brass and the woodwinds to see how they sound together, how they play off of each other. So you can kind of hear a little bit. One of the things I'm really trying to work on when it comes to orchestral stuff is sort of providing that seating arrangement. You know, when you hear horns and, you know, tubas and trombones on their own sort of perspective seating, and then woodwinds sort of in like creating not only a left and right, but a forward and back. That's something I'm really trying to work on. And a lot of that has to do with reverbs as well. You know, how you have your pre-delays set up and stuff like that. And I'll get into that a little bit as well later on. And then after that, we just got percussion. Like I said, percussion's playing very simple. There's not much going on. Like I said, pretty simple, because most of the musical interest is coming from the strings, it's coming from the brass, the woodwinds, the whole orchestral section. And then after that, one of my favorite parts of this whole thing is the choir. I'm blending boys choir along with men's and women's choir. So it really lends to a big, full, and kind of rich in sound, because there's so many different textures of, you know, the men, the women, and then also the boys choir. So this piece actually starts off with the boys choir. I'm using from Mercury Elements. This is just a legato patch, and pretty much just kind of introducing this first voice with the melody to kind of bring in that sort of, you know, that innocence to the track. You know, when you think of Christmas, you think of, you know, children getting all excited for, you know, waking up in the morning and opening up some presents and destroying their house with just gift wrap all over the place. So this, I thought it'd be fun to start off, and then just slowly bringing in the men and women's choir. So let's go ahead and listen to just the choir section by itself. I love how that stuff sounds, because it just sounds so full and peaceful sounding. I love it. So like I said, I have some different stuff going on. The main thing that you heard for the most part at the very beginning is the Mercury Elements legato. All right, so with this next one, I'm using Mercury Children's Choir Micro, and this is really cool because the Playmaster track has the ability to switch between some different phrases. So we have Elysium, Kyrie, and then and then, you know, some staccatos. Real simple, but at the same time, this is it adds a little bit more realism to the track, because it's not just and you're sort of hearing some words being said on top of ahs and oohs. So the way I have this set up, on the very first, on layer 1, this little blend knob goes between layer 1 and layer 2. So if I'm on layer 1 and I just do, you know, and then if I move my MIDI CC controller all the way up, you're going to hear the different word. So I thought it'd be good to set it to where it's not always playing the same word over and over, so it's kind of bouncing back and forth between the two different ones. So let's go ahead and hear how that sounds by itself, and I'll show you where I did the, down here you can see where I programmed in the MIDI controller to where it switches to the different word. So that, you know, it makes it sound a little bit more realistic, like you're hearing some words being said. And and that's just using Mercury Micro. So when you put those two together, it sounds a little bit more like you're sitting in front of a children's choir singing. And then I also have some vowel sustains. And these are from Mercury Elements as well. So let's hear how these sound. And another thing, just like the strings and the brass and the woodwinds, really trying to make each part its own thing, not just slamming on a sustain patch and then just playing a bunch of, which sounds cool, but I mean, if you're really trying to have the the feeling of you're listening to a real orchestra or something even close, you want to have those kind of counter melodies and stuff, because it really makes the part sound that much more richer. And then after that, we got some Mars, which is the men's symphonic choir. Let's hear how this sounds by itself. And then let's go ahead and add the women's choir. So if you look at these parts, so the women's choir is just playing just real simple stuff. The men's are kind of doing a little bit of different as far as the melody goes. So I like that sort of, that counter melody kind of thing. Like I said, it just makes it sound that much cooler. And then after that, let's talk about the very intro of the song. It starts off with some harp. It's Elysium harp, which is just a great sounding harp. You can put it in a lot of different spaces. I thought it would be fun to sort of do my own little glissando into the whole piece. So, because I didn't want to just have it boom start in with everything, so I used the harp to kind of gliss my way into the whole piece. Very nice little thing, just kind of playing off the scale of how the song starts. And then, all right, now this is what I'm going to call sort of like the magic section of it, adding that Christmas touch to it, because when you just hear it like how we've been listening to it, I mean, it sounds melodically like a Christmas song, but it's still kind of missing that thing. Sleighbells definitely kind of get you there, but sometimes it needs that little, like I said, that Christmas magic to it. So I loaded up our Alto Glock Glockenspiel, which just has that. It adds that extra little, like I said, that little Christmas sheen to it. And then after that, we got some Noah bells. Let's listen to just these by themselves. I mean, that alone already sounds pretty Christmassy. So, but like adding that stuff on the very top of all this other orchestration, it just kind of, I don't know, it adds that sort of Christmas spirit, I guess, to it. Now, as far as the very end of the song, I wanted to kind of bring it home a little bit. So it starts off kind of big, a little bit grandiose. Then it sort of gets a little bit bigger in the middle section right here. This part's really cool. I really enjoyed this part. I was really trying to make these sections sort of interesting, but a really nice melodic playing off of each other. I was actually really happy with how this came out. Let's just go ahead and listen to these by themselves. Now this is the majority of the busy stuff that's going on. It's actually Elysium Harp and emotional piano. So you have Elysium Harp doing this. So they're both doing completely different things. And this is something that could probably get lost when you hear it in the context of everything, but it's those little things that are going on that maybe you don't necessarily hear just full on, but it definitely adds to the texture, I think, especially if you try to write it to be musical, but at the same time playing off of the overall harmonic picture. So these are just them by themselves. It's a nice little sound, and then when you add the rest of the the little alto dings and Noah bells and stuff, you get these this really nice sort of bare bones Christmas structure. And then add everything else in. Now, to sort of bring it all home, as they say, I wanted to, after it sort of ends, it does this big kind of climb. It just goes right back to, pretty much how I started the piece, just on piano. And I'm also using one of the ambiences from Glass Beach, which we actually just re-released. And, because I thought it might be cool to sort of add that kind of a nice windy environment to kind of fit the mood a little bit. So this is just the piano and how it ends. So that's pretty much it. This is kind of my first time ever really trying to write a Christmas song. I mean, I'm wearing an Exorcist shirt, so you can kind of see I don't necessarily listen to a lot of Christmas music, but as composers, I think it's it's important that you try to step out of your boundaries a little bit of things that you're used to, and trying to take stabs at different genres and things that like I said, they're out of your norm. And being a composer, you definitely want to be able to do that when the time calls, because you never know, Hallmark might call and say, hey, we need a cheesy Christmas song for our new movie. And you got to be able to do it. So I definitely think it's fun to try some different things. And yeah, this was actually a lot of fun to write. All right, so that's pretty much it for this video. If you like these videos, make sure to subscribe. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up for 2019 with composition videos, new libraries, artist interviews, a lot of things coming up in 2019. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Have an awesome holiday and new year, and we will see you guys next year. So thanks again, and see you later.